if we could somehow track those in CalCATS as well. So we have devised a way to do that, and as soon as we're done with this round of the weights and measures module, which is coming out here very shortly, we'll turn our attention to building that. But without that in place, so first question to you, John and Mike, does that clear up kind of why there are some pieces of the PRAMR that are still going to be manual entry?
So, yeah, okay, so then we need to just keep track of those numbers separately at this time.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep, basically anything that's not an hours entry, that is currently manual entry is going to stay that way for now.
Okay.
So let me hop into CalCATS and let's just talk a little bit about how some of those PRAMR mappings happen. So the first thing you'll notice is once you're enabled for CalCATS in CalPEATS, there's some new things that happen. Let me just pull up CalPEATS here. So I'll just open it. Second key. Okay, so the first thing you'll see as far as building those PRAMR entries is there is time tracking for everything, all the activities that we do in CalPEATS. The time is tracked in your CalPEATS activity records. So for an inspection, there's a time entry block right here that is new. And I can go down here and just add time entries. I don't remember what the inspection date was for this. I'll put it on the first, so I can put 2.5 hours, and I can provide remarks, field time. And I can enter multiple time records. So, I can enter time for the field time for an inspection. I can also enter office time, revising and finalizing a report. And when my supervisor logs in to review it, they can log their time during the review. And all of that will accumulate here, and it will synchronize over to the CalCATS system on your time card. If I go look at my time card, you'll see there's a section in there for pesticide activity. So if I jump back to, let's see, I think I've got some stuff on back in February. You'll see that pesticide activity then appears in your time card, and when you double click on it, I've got to find some newer entries because this is old test data, but when you double click on the pesticide activity row, it will tell you the inspection number, the investigation number, the enforcement response number that time was recorded on. And you can, pretty easily open those records right from your CalCATS timesheet. So that's kind of the first half of the exchange. You enter time on pesticide activities in CalPEATS, and then it shows up on your CalCATS time card. At the same time, those hours that you've now entered in CalPEATS on these inspections are going to fill out
John, I think there was a question.
Sections of the PRAMR.
There was a question. Mike.
So I'm switching over to all categories here, and you'll see that our pre-app hours and our total inspection hours are no longer manual entry items. As soon as you're enabled for CalCATS, those then get compiled automatically in these hours categories. So 1A here, and then down to total license work hours.
Mike or John, did you have a question about that?
I just was going to clarify that timesheet category of pesticide activity, is that strictly CalCATS entry stuff then?
Yep, this is a summation of all the time that you've entered in CalPEATS.
Yeah, that's what I meant, CalPEATS. Okay. But
Yep.
We shouldn't be manually entering anything in there. It should all be CalPEATS generated.
That is correct. Yep.
Okay.
Now, that covers really just two categories. Well, there's a few other categories. So, for example, we have down under investigations, we have, where are my investigations? There we go. Investigations total licensed work hours, that is also being compiled in CalCATS as you enter time on investigations. Same thing for hours on compliance actions and enforcement responses. So all of those things are entered in CalCATS. They're summarized on your PRAMR for you, and then that time is transferred to CalCATS and shows up on this pesticide activity row. Then there are several other hours entries that need to go onto the PRAMR. So for example, your restricted materials permits, total licensed work hours, structural pest control, well, that's actually not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for here. Restricted materials, non-ag permits, restricted materials, notice of intent hours. All of these categories can be mapped in CalCATS to new timesheet rows. So if I go look in our admin on our configuration and I look at my timesheet categories, whenever I'm entering timesheet categories, I haven't looked in the test system for a while, so some of my categories have disappeared. So let's enter a new category here. This will be for restricted materials, non-ag permits. And it's going to be straight entry, and it's going to map to, and you'll see this PRAMR section selection here. It's going to map to restricted materials, ag permits, or non-ag permits hours. So what that means is on my time card, I'm going to see a new row called RM non-ag permits, and I'll record all my time on non-ag permits on that row, and any time that I enter there will automatically show up on the PRAMR in section 4B. For time, this is work time. Now, if I go back to my timesheet, and I'll jump to today, I can now add that new row, RM non-ag permits, and I can pop in some hours there. So I did 8 hours on Monday of non-ag permits. And then that will then automatically synchronize over to, let's see who I map to here. I'm not connected to a CalCATS user, so let me connect to CalCATS 39. Oh, because I'm in the wrong county. Log in as a different user here. Steph, do you remember what we set up as CalCATS 39's password?
You tried 2 kegs. Try MacPhace.
Nah.
Damn it.
Okay, sorry guys. It's been a while since I've played around in the test system, so let me do a
John, I think Mike and I have this part figured out, so it's not too big of a deal
okay.
as far as that synchronization goes on.
Well, I'll back in as our test user here. It's just nice to illustrate kind of, that synchronization process happening. But so suffice to say that, those timesheet rows, you can set up a timesheet row to map to each of your PRAMR categories where you're going to be tracking those hours,
Yeah.
and they'll automatically be.
Can you set those as a template too, so they just show up every week?
Yep. Yeah. So for anyone that does that kind of work, in admin, you go to your timesheet templates. And so for regular staff, I can edit that and I can say add all those, those PRAMR categories here.
Yeah.
But they will show up every month, correct? We don't have to reset that?
Yeah. Nope, you don't have to reset. The thing is, the first time you visit a timesheet for a payroll period, it saves this set of rows. So if you add a new timesheet category, then if I go to a timesheet that I've already opened, it's not going to appear there. I'll see that add timesheet row link down right here.
Okay.
But then any future payroll periods that I go to, that it'll follow the template that's already established.
Okay.
So it's just it's a little short transition. Okay, and that's really it as far as getting the PRAMR completed and filled out. That's how the time is exchanged. There are hours that are entered in CalPEATS, and really the reason for entering them in CalPEATS is because we already have forms for inspections, investigations, compliance actions, NOPAs, and all of that. And it seemed more convenient to let you enter hours on them, kind of the way you enter hours on your weights and measures inspections in CalCATS, rather than having to flip back and forth between your inspection report and your timesheet, which are, would be in two systems. So all that time gets synchronized, and you'll see it in both places. And then for those other categories, you'll just customize your timesheet rows. Now, one thing I will mention is you can map more than one timesheet row to a PRAMR category. So, for example, if you look at use monitor inspections total hours, which is right here, there's only one row for everything other than pre-apps in PRAMR. Another example of that would be surveillance hours, right? So surveillance hours is something that there's no form for in CalPEATS, so it'll be a timesheet row in CalCATS. But if you wanted to break up your surveillance hours into ag surveillance and weights and measures surveillance, or even better, ag surveillance versus structural surveillance, right? Two main categories. You can create multiple timesheet rows in this timesheet configuration and have those rows all mapped to one PRAMR category. So you can subdivide what you're reporting to PRAMR to give you more detail on your time cards.
Okay.
But you can't do the reverse. We can't take a single timesheet category in CalCATS and somehow split it between two different PRAMR categories.
Okay.
And then last thing I want to mention is, as I said, I recognize that there are lots of categories in here for a lot of these counts that would be really convenient, since you're now asking staff to enter the time they're spending doing those things, to have them just, fill out a very simple form to count the number of widgets that they did as well. So in the very long term, this will probably come after our Weights and Measures mobile app, but in the very long term, we're probably going to come up with kind of a standard pesticide regulatory data entry form that covers a lot of the permitting, a lot of the registration, the license renewal stuff. Kind of like one of the ag forms where it has everything on one sheet. You fill out time for this and number of widgets for this, all on one sheet. So it'll be like a daily for pesticide-related ag activity. But in the shorter term, what we're going to do is, if I take a look at one of these custom tracking forms, down here at the bottom of the form, we've got, a variety of custom fields that you can add. And so what we're going to start working on next week is, when you create an integer field, right, we're going to give you a PRAMR category drop down here. So just like with the time entry rows, where you can say, okay, all the time that's entered in this is going to map to a certain PRAMR category. You'll get a list of things like civil complaints filed, criminal complaints filed, referrals we count already. Up here under permitting and licensing, you'll get the count of number of non-ag permits issued, number of ag permits issued. Right, so you can basically create your own custom forms and map those integer fields to be summed up for the PRAMR. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Is DPR going to have direct access to this report, to the PRAMR through CalCATS and CalPEAS?
No, they don't have any access to CalCATS, but they already have access to the summarized numbers in CalPEAS, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So if I take a little bit more of a concrete example, right? We've got restricted materials, ag permits, hours, number issued, number denied. Right, so I could create a timesheet category for that. I'm going to call it, let's create a new one. So this is going to be RM ag permits, and it's going to be custom tracking. Program's irrelevant because it's kind of hard to lock to one. We don't care about program or subprogram, contract or location. Don't care about mileage or expenses. We'd want the hours to go to restricted materials, ag permits. Payroll category is going to be work time. And then on that category, I'm going to add 2 custom fields. So one of them is going to be none issued. And it's going to be an integer. And then this new field here will let me map it to this 4A restricted materials ag permits number issued.
So that'll be the workaround for now to be able to count those numbers.
Yep.
And in the future that may all change, but that'll at least be able to classify them. Because I imagine DPR, we keep track of that on Report 5 currently, so I imagine DPR still wants us to keep track of that. And then instead of having to send them a whole separate form, this will be one way to do it, I guess.
Yep. And so, yeah, once you're done with it, it's going to, basically give you a little form. I'll just complete the exercise here just so we can see how it actually works. So the integer.
So is every county, I would imagine every county is counting them similar to this. Is there a way to get like a default style template where this is all done, or does every county just have to go in there and add these line items and add them to our timesheets?
Well, that's something we're going to discuss at the IMC meeting next week is, now we've got 4 or 5 counties that have either gone through or are still going through this process of setting things up the way they want. I am starting to see a lot of commonality.
Awesome.
And so I want to propose that for everyone that's in CalCATS now, I'd like to kind of put together a generalized template and send it out to everyone that's expressed interest in CalCATS and say, hey, it'll really speed up your adoption time if you can take a close look at this and let us know if this matches what you're going to need on your timesheets.
Yeah. I think that would help tremendously because it's kind of daunting going in there. We're not completely familiar with CalCATS yet. We're getting there, but all these line items and adding that to special count the permits and all those widgets, you just click through that in 5 minutes and had it all set up. Where people that aren't too familiar, it could take a while to even get the template in place, let alone know exactly which direction you want it to go and all that. So if we get like a master template that we could work with, that alleviates a lot of the work from the very beginning at that point.
Yeah, I kind of expected that we would get to this point. I was kind of hoping that COVID would be done so that I could go sit down with the county and really, because, it's very hard to get people. It's going to take a day or maybe 2 days to really build the templates out for a county. And it's really hard to keep people on web meetings for that long.
Yeah.
So I was hoping I could come sit in someone's office and just sit there with them and do it, but that's kind of not real happening.
I know, that's bizarre. Yeah, who knows? And who knows what the future looks like either at this point.
Yeah, I know, right. But anyway, we're working our way through it. We do try to put together little video snippets. Steph is recording this, and that's why I wanted to finish out the demo here, because now you can see, here's a very simple, ag-restricted materials permits form that somebody could fill out every day that says how many they issued, how many they denied, how many hours they spent, and we can get this mapped into the PRAMR, and that'll take care of that. Like I said, in the long run, we'll make a more specialized version of this form that covers, ag permits, non-ag permits, registrations, licenses. But that's kind of where we're going. But back to your point that, there's all of you that are early adopting the system are brave, and we're very appreciative of the effort that you're putting into it. But counties that come a little later will definitely take advantage of the lessons that we're learning right now.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some real movement on creating that template starting next week. As I mentioned, we're putting the finishing touches on the weights and measures inspection module, which I know you'll be very anxious to see, and I'd like to get another web meeting with you guys, maybe a little longer one sometime next week. Because, we've been working on the planner, root book functionality, and the map integration, and the complaint tracking, and all of the other stuff that needs to be around the basics that you've kind of already seen, just filling out inspection forms. So we're ready to launch that, but that will free up some of our resources to get back to, working on some of this basic templating stuff.
Okay.
Cool. So what else can we help you with, describe, or talk about today?
Okay. Yeah, and it may not be implemented yet. I don't know. We were working through crop statistics. It's on the front page at our ag activities screen, but when you clicked on it, it wasn't ready. Is that still the case?
Yeah. So I started talking to a couple of counties about their crop stats, and what most counties have told me is that that's just a straight line item entry. They don't actually track it.
Yeah, there's no quantifying measure other than time, but so that could be just one of those line items that we add, right?
Yep. So you would just add that as a straight entry timesheet category for crop stats.
Okay.
Yep. Same thing. That's basically anything else that you need to add in that you want to track time for that doesn't require entry of supplemental information.
Yeah. What about
now we are? Yes. So I was just about to go back to the activities list here. We do have an industrial hemp form.
Yeah,
it's not implemented yet. But
okay.
That's coming out. That's coming out this week.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
It's done. It's just in review right now. And we also have a preliminary cannabis form that we've kind of generalized from the contracts that a couple of different counties have received. So that'll be going up there. And then we're also talking to Patricia about maybe revamping this Report 10 to cover the Be Safe program reporting.
Oh, yeah, you read my mind, because that's a separate form. We have a Be Safe. We're part of that whole deal, and we have a whole separate reporting form that we have to send to CDFA. I would guess that's where it goes, but if we could encompass that on Report 10 somehow, I'd meld the two, that'd be amazing, because it's a lot of repetitive anyway. Talking registrations, you're talking Be Safe registrations. Well, it just seems like that they could get the same information from Report 10 and maybe add a couple Be Safe fields and it would be golden.
That's exactly what we're doing. Yep. So if you don't mind, can you shoot me the form that you're currently using?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's a pretty standardized form that Patricia Bowles put together.
We kind of customized it for Shasta County to meet our needs, and but I will definitely send that to you, and so you can have
okay, cool.
Yeah. And then the only other thing, I guess we found the GWIS monthly. We have a separate GWIS monthly, but we were looking at the GWIS, the Pearson's disease, and I think blue tags and the GWIS our WIT daily is on here. It was just a little deeper than what I was used to looking at. But as far as like blue tag inspections with shipments coming in from out of state, or not out of state, from Southern California. But I think right there under nursery shipments,
Mm-hmm.
those are the blue tags. I would imagine that would be the best place to count those. And miles.
Yeah.
Because right now on the blue tag inspections, we keep track of miles driven to these nurseries to do the inspection. Is there some way to count miles there?
Yep. We've got a ticket in our system to Adam. Barry Clark gave us that information and explained that even though it's not on the current CFA forms, it is something that needs to be tracked. So I'm not sure the status of that one, but it's on the list for the developers to get into the system, and so we'll have it in there very shortly.
Okay. Well, that's all good news, because those are just, Mike and I both tried to put in like the last 2 weeks of our day-to-day activities, and those were some of the hurdles that we ran into with time, not being able to go into CalCATS, but that's good to hear.
Okay, well, good.
Progressing forward, yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure and get the status on the mileage field being added and see if we can't get that pushed out this week, along with releasing the hemp form and the instructions that go with it. And give me some more feedback after you've had a little closer look at how the PRAMR integration goes, and I'll shoot you a note at the end of the week. And what does your schedule look like next week?
Somewhat open. The commissioners have a meeting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so we might be assisting Rick with that a little bit in the mornings. But if you send us a time of what day works for you, we can check our calendar and see what we can work out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be in some of those falls on Tuesday. I think that's when the IMC is having their meeting.
Perfect.
So I'll tell you what, I'll shoot Thursday morning. It'll probably be open for most of us.
Okay.
Unless Rick comes back with a passel of new work for you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Mike's got a question for you.
Can we go back into one of the line items over there? It's like it wasn't pesticide activity, because you said that comes from CalPEAS, but like pesticide support. You guys have that on there? Is that something we?
Yeah. So we've gone around with counties on multiple different ways of entering their support hours. And really, there's two different ways you can approach it, and it's totally up to you how you want to approach it. The way we've got it in here is we have a general administrative support category, and when you enter time into it, you have to assign that time. So this is going to be counted as direct support time, right? Because I'm going to assign this to weights and measures, quantity control. Right. So when we do the monthly and annual reporting, this is going to go directly to the QC line on the report. Or if I was doing an ag and I said I'm doing pest detection support, so it's really direct support. And even within this, there's some options for you, right? So I can create one general administrative support line, or I can split it into ag administrative support and weights and measures administrative support. And the place you control that is, again, on this configuration screen in your timesheet categories. If I go into, let's say I wanted to make this administrative support just for weights and measures, I can restrict the available programs on when somebody's entering time here and say this is just going to be for weights and measures. So then I would rename this WM Admin Support. And now when I go into my timesheet entry, the only program I have here is weights and measures.
So we're kind of in charge of populating those lists on our own.
Yep. And it depends on your style of tracking that time, but that all applies to what I call direct support. And then you can also create an indirect support category, in which case it's just going to be straight entry, just like holiday or sick leave. And in that case, when people are entering time, they're just putting in hours. They're not assigning it to a program, and there's an allocation mechanism that, you know, allocates that time based on the, you know, total professional hours in each program.
Okay. All right. And then one last question. What if we create a category, but we want to delete it? Is that possible, or is it just deactivated and it just kind of hangs out there?
Just deactivate it.
Okay.
If you want to actually remove from the database, just shoot help desk a note, and then we can go in and delete it for you. We'll just, you know, double check that there's no current timesheets or anything that have time recorded for it, and, you know, get it cleaned out of the system.
Yeah, I had one. I was just messing around. I probably should have done it in the test. I have an ag. It just named it ag. I don't even know where I was going with it. And it added it to my template, and then I went to remove it, and it said it's attached to my template, so I couldn't delete it. But
yeah, I think if you get rid of it from your template configuration,
yeah, maybe that's the way I'll about it. Try that.
And you make sure that nobody's time card has any hours associated with it.
Yeah.
Then you may be able to delete it directly. If not, just shoot us a note and we'll get rid of it for you.
All right.
I mean, obviously, if someone's actually recorded time on it, then we got to, you know, talk to you and find out where to move that time to. But
yeah. Well, so far it's just Mike and I in the office that are doing it, and then we're gonna try to get it out, you know, soon to everybody once we get all these little hurdles jumped.